I'm going to take you through a journey, like Amanda said, and the journey is kind of going to do that, and at the end we'll get to our destination. We'll have also time for questions at the end, so no problem about that. We're going to start our journey in the Middle East. For those of you who are not so familiarized, Israel and the Holy Land is here. This is Turkey, and this is Syria and Jordan and Egypt. And when you look at the Holy Land itself, it's quite a small, thin piece of land the size of Wales. And it's only 37 miles wide in the smallest part. It's a very small piece of land, but it's very diverse, and I'll show you why. When you fly with a plane at 5,000-6,000 feet, your nose is in Lebanon, your tail is in Egypt, right wing is in Jordan, and the other wing is in the sea. So it's a very small little piece of land, but very significant. Why is it so significant? Why was it so significant during all the historical periods? Well, if we look at the map, this is Africa, the side of Egypt, and kind of the left corner. This is Asia, or the Middle East, but towards Asia, and this is Europe. And the only little piece of land that connects those three continents is the Holy Land. That's why in ancient times it was so important. It was the Heathrow of the ancient times. Everything went through that piece of land. All the big trades, if you know about them, the famous ones, the silk trade, the Via Maris, they all went through this little piece of land, and that's why it's so significant for lots of cultures. And if we take a tour from the north till the south, very fast, I'll kind of take you through a virtual tour, and you'll see those three continents represented in this little piece of land that you can drive from north to south in 5 or 6 hours and you're there. But let's go and see that. So in the north, we start in the very far north of the Galilee. They are ski resorts in the Hermon mountain. So this is the north of Israel. In the winter, the ski resorts. In the summer, you can go up there and hike. So we have all that in the north. The Galilee is very European. Lots of greenery, lots of forests, a lot of water and rivers. On the beach side of the Galilee, there's beautiful chalk mountains going into the water. The northern Jordan River, which is not usually talked about because the Bible usually talks about the South Jordan River, which is from the Sea of Galilee down into the Dead Sea. That's where the baptism took place, that's where Jericho is. But there's also a northern part which is feeding the Sea of Galilee from the Galilee. And that's a whole different kind of Jordan River. The Sea of Galilee, of course, a very big, nice, sweetwater lake with the town of Tiberias today over there. Of course, we have a few places where Christianity is baptized. One is on the mouth of the Jordan River in the Sea of Galilee, which is this one. And there's another place which is further south, we'll see it soon, near Jericho on the Jordan River. This is the Jordan River that goes more to the south, and it's more into the desert, so it looks a bit more like that. You probably heard of the concept of a kibbutz in Israel. There's lots of them today. It's a community that lives together. There's different ones in different places, and the kids are all running free, and there's no traffic there. Everybody eats together. It's the whole concept of a kibbutz life in Israel. Akko is a very, very ancient port city north of Haifa. It really goes back to the Byzantine time, and it's a beautiful place to visit. Haifa itself is sitting on the bay, and this is up here, that's Akko that we just saw, so it's on the other side of the bay. When you're looking north, this is the Baha'i monastery there, beautiful gardens. And if you look south, this is the Carmel Mountains, where Haifa is positioned. When you go down on the shore towards Tel Aviv, you go through Caesarea, which was the Roman capital, the Roman headquarters in the time that we're going to talk about soon, and you can see everything still there with all the archaeological evidence. All the area that is in the middle is where we have mostly the oranges, the Jaffa oranges, and all the other fruits that grow in the area that's near the shore. Tel Aviv itself, I was once in my previous life, I was in Silicon Valley in a meeting and somebody said, "Do you have a camel at home?" I said, "No." But some people have a bit of misconception. Tel Aviv is quite a big, lively city, very big business and nightlife, and the food. The food is because Jewish people came back from the diaspora after 2,000 years that they were in the diaspora. They came back in the last 70 years, so you get food just from everywhere, all together. So you've got North African food and East European food and Far East food and Arabic food, and you probably, some of you know all these. And they're Arab food. I mean, these Arab restaurants in Jaffa and Nazareth and Jerusalem, they're the best food ever. If we're talking about the Arab population, another misconception, because what we usually see on the media is the conflict areas, the Palestinians and the occupied territories. But not a lot of people know that 23% of Israelis are Arab Israelis. They have Israeli passports, they're part of the government, there's ministers who are Arabs. Most of the doctors in the hospitals are Arab. We have a beauty queen who's Arab. And they are Arab Israelis who live in the mixed cities like Haifa, Jerusalem, Nazareth, Jaffa, all these cities. The communities live together. They don't call themselves Palestinians, they're just Israeli Arabs. Another misconception that we need to talk about demographics is about the Jewish kind of demographic within itself. So probably a lot of you can recognize and see people in London that are ultra-Orthodox. They are called Hasidic Jews. They're very, very Orthodox. There are lots of sects within that group. They usually have lots of children. If you all saw Fiddler on the Roof, that's Eastern European, old Jewish little towns or villages. They come from there. That's where the Hasidic movement started. And they still dress like that, and they take all their history from there. So that's the ultra-Orthodox Jewish people. Then you have people that just call themselves religious Jews, and they dress with Western clothes. They usually have a kippah, a yarmulke on their head. It's called a kippah to cover their head, and they have the talit. The talit comes out of their shirt with these strings here. And those are the religious Jewish people. And you have the secular Jewish people that are just like all of us in the Western world. But the real demographics is this. There's only 9% of the Jewish people in the Holy Land who are ultra-Orthodox. 10% are the religious people, and all the rest, 81%, call themselves secular. But it's a bit different than what you have in Europe and America. Because if we look at the secular group, half of them call themselves traditional, Masorti. That means they keep kosher food. They usually don't drive on the Sabbath. They fast on Yom Kippur. They do all the holidays, but they call themselves not religious. But it's a big chunk of the non-religious people. And that's something that you don't find so much in other faiths. And also, in the secular part that are called themselves real secular, about half of them believe in God. So a staggering 80% of Jewish people in the Holy Land believe in God. Another misconception that you find a lot on the news is the word Zionist. Zionist is actually everybody who lives in Israel and everybody who believes Israel has a right to exist. So it's everybody except a few sects of these ultra-Hasidic groups that are against the Israeli state. They don't think it has to be a democratic, secular state. They think it has to be a religious halacha state. So these extreme groups want to have a religious state, and they don't believe in the state of Israel. They don't take part in it. But everybody else is Zionist, even left-wing people and atheists. The people you hear on the news a lot, and usually it's related to Zionism, is the settlers, the people who are living in the occupied territories, and they believe in the whole state of Israel to be part of the whole thing, and they go by the Bible, but they're only 4% of the population. They make all the noise. And they're mostly part of this group, and a bit of a secular group. But another thing, when I came to England, as a Jewish Israeli person, and I talked to some friends of mine, somebody from I played volleyball with, somebody from the village, and I said, "Are you Christian?" And he said, "No." although he's an English-born person here, and his parents go to church, but he's not Christian. So the answer is no. And then I started to understand that when you ask somebody, are you Christian, it means actually, are you religious? Do you go to church? It's not like that in the Jewish world. In the Jewish world, from the most atheist person you can find, the scientist in I don't know where, left wing, whatever, until the most ultra-Orthodox Hasidic, when you ask him, are you Jewish? The answer is, yes, I'm Jewish. They're all Jewish. It's a nation to be part of the Judaism. So it's not only about religion. It's about being part of the Jewish nation. So that's just some misconceptions about the demographics. Back to our tour. This is Jaffa, the old port that we have in the Bible, and it's thousands of years old, just near Tel Aviv. This is Tel Aviv. Beautiful place to go. Nice restaurants and Arab food. When you go up the hills towards Jerusalem, on the Judean hills, the western side is very full of forest and looks European. When we get to the other side soon, that's the desert side. Jerusalem itself, the west side, is very populated with old and new buildings together, lots of restaurants and nice places to go. The east side is also full of markets and very colorful. As a child and our youth, I used to go a lot there with my friends. We used to spend our weekends there with the big restaurants and things in East Jerusalem. And then we have the old city, which is where everything happened back in the biblical time. It's still there, more or less, how it used to be. It's divided into 4 quarters, the old city itself. We have the Christian quarter. We have the Armenian quarter. They have a quarter of the Armenian faith. We have the Muslim quarter, which is the biggest one. And we have the Jewish quarter here. And this is the Temple Mount that all the religions kind of are circled around. Temple Mount itself used to look like this. This is a reconstruction of the Second Temple of Solomon. This was the Holy of Holies. This was the whole Temple Mount. And this is facing west, so that's north. So this wall is the western wall of the temple, and the other side of that, on that side, is the western wall. So this wall here is that other side of this wall. And that's the holy place for the Jewish people. That's the closest they can go also by their religion, the Jewish religion. It's the closest they can go to where the Holy of Holies was. They can't go into the real place because that's only the priests used to go there. If we compare then and now, so that's the Holy Mount, the temple back then. Today, you can see here the old city, the Alaska Mosque, exactly where the Holy of Holies used to be. And here you see Western Jerusalem and Eastern Jerusalem all in one picture. That's how it looks today. This is a view from Mount Olives. If you go to Mount Olives, this is what you see. Not a lot of people know, but Jerusalem is very high up in the mountains and it snows in the winter. People think of camels and desert. No, it snows. It's really cold. I grew up in Jerusalem. And it's kind of European in terms of weather. A little village in Jerusalem is called Ein Karim. And this is where, by a few Christian faiths, this is where John the Baptist came from, and this is also where Mary went to Bethlehem from. So there's lots and lots of churches there, different Christian churches in that little village. It's a beautiful place to go around. Now, when we go down from Jerusalem into the Judean hills towards the east, we're in the desert, and we can find lots of beautiful monasteries there, ancient ones hiding in the rocks of the wadis. There's lots of water springs that you can go and visit. And then when you go down, I actually used to do that with my friends as a school child. Used to go down and hike towards the Dead Sea, and then you get to the lowest place in the world, which is the Dead Sea, which is a magnificent, a bit weird if you want to go into the water. You're floating, and it's kind of a weird feeling, but it's very healthy, and you can have all your health mud masks on there. Because it's very low, because it's very hot, because it's very dry, that's where it was a very good place to find the Dead Sea Scrolls, because they were preserved so beautifully. And they found them in some caves just near the sea. And there's lots and lots of Old Testament pieces of scroll. And there's also a fragment from the Gospel of Matthew, which is considered to be the oldest piece of the New Testament ever found. That's piece number Q57. It's in the Israel Museum. You can see it. Masada, it's a whole long story that I won't go into today, but a very beautiful place to go, just on the Dead Sea there. And when you go down to the Negev desert, you're going down south toward the end of Israel, you go through beautiful places. One of them is called Mahdesh Ramon. It's a huge natural crater. It's breathtaking, and the soil and all the ground here is millions of years old, even billions, and you can get all the different kinds of sands there from the different layers, and it's beautiful to see that. That's on the way down to the Red Sea. You'll see the Negev desert, although it's a very dry desert, it's very green. There's lots of irrigation going on. And then you get down to the tip of the Holy Land of Israel today, which is Eilat. One side, Aqaba of Jordan on the other side. You can cross, of course, there's peace between the nations now, and it's on the Red Sea, and it's a very big town. And what is beautiful here is that everything's coral reefs at the bottom. So in this little piece of land, from the north, we got ski resorts, and we go down to coral reefs in a place that's the size of Wales. So that's why the beauty of that little piece of land is. Now I'll tell you how I got to this subject of the first 300 years. I'm an artist as a profession, and I had a phase where I started to draw childhood scenes from my childhood, places I liked. So I took, for example, the Sea of Galilee in Tiberias. This is how it looks today with all the hotels and everything, but you have, and I used to go there as a child, all the old ports, and I kind of drew what I felt it used to look like. And this is what I used to do in all kinds of places that I had a feel for. This is on the Jordan River, the baptism site, and I kind of started to draw these places, and I suddenly started to see in this period, it was about a year that I was drawing these, that I'm drawing a certain period, okay? I'm drawing about 2,000 years ago, and my heart kind of went, this is the Via della Rosa, it actually looks like that today too. The Garden Tomb, and I actually came from this to see that I'm drawing that period, and I was kind of drawn to it, drawn to my drawings, drawn to that period, and I started to research and investigate, because it's a period of hundreds of years. It's not one generation. It's dozens and dozens of generations. Before Christianity, after Jesus. Okay? And usually we don't talk a lot about that. We don't hear a lot about that. On all the religions, also the Jewish religions, also the Christianity religions, we don't really talk about that period of before everything, when it was before the separation. So we had 2,000 years after that period until today, unfortunately, of a lot of fear, a lot of death, a lot of hate, periods that we really want to forget. And there's a very deep and dark, unfortunately, collective memory in the world for that period of these 2,000 years. So if you take an average Jewish person who's not really aware of the historical evidence of that period and everything, and just tell him the word, what does the word Jesus tell you? For that average Jewish person, it will say Spanish Inquisition, Crusades, Holocaust. That's for him Jesus, because that is what the last 2,000 years was all about for the Jewish people. If you take an average, and this is very generalizing of course, an average Catholic Polish farmer, I don't know, in Poland, and you tell him what's a Jew for you, so you say, oh, they killed Jesus and they sacrificed children on the Passover, and all kinds of these stories. It's all very dark stuff that's generations and generations because of all the bloodshed was embedded. But I don't want to talk about that at all. I'm talking about before that, and not for a small period of time, for a long period of time, when they were all living together. So we have to kind of see where we are now and go into that period. So, any questions until now? Because now we're actually going into the interesting stuff. Just take a sip. We're going into the 1st century now. And back then, the only monotheistic religion in the world actually was Judaism. So if you were not Jewish, you were a pagan or an Egyptian with Egyptian gods, Greek gods, Roman, Hindu if you're in the East. And in the Holy Land, monotheistically speaking, it was Jewish people that were living there. And the Romans were in charge. I found a few very interesting pictures from the turn of this century, but they're really ancient, and it just gave me a really good feel that you can see, these are fishermen on the Sea of Galilee. But it looks like, you can feel how it used to be then. These are people doing olive oil from olives. And these are children in Nazareth near the Mary's well. And you can really kind of feel in the time of Jesus when he was a child, this is kind of where he grew up and where it was all started. In that time, beginning of the first century, there were a few sects of Jewish people. The main ones were these: the Sadducees, the Pharisees, the Essenes, the Synagogues, and the Samaritans. We're going to talk only about the first two, who are the big ones and the most influenced ones. The Sadducees were the priests. They were the people in charge of the mount, of the Temple Mount, of the whole religious sacrifice and the authority of Judaism. They were very rich. They were connected to the Roman Empire. They were politically very strong, and they were handling everything to do with Judaism back then. They didn't have anything to do with the oral Judaism Torah that came down through generations. They only went by the script. They didn't believe in resurrection of the dead, which is something important for the next steps that we're going to talk about. And people didn't really like them. When you come from a little village, or even from Nazareth on your donkey 3 times a year for the Passover or for the New Year, and you go up there and you see this big, shiny, golden marble, temple with all the priests, it's very disconnecting for yourself. The other big group are called the Pharisees, and in Hebrew, proshim means the people who are kind of divided aside from the mainstream. That's more or less the translation. And they were people who were more around the Torah and the oral Torah. They were more. There were people who were more poor. They lived in poverty. They wrote all the Talmud, if you know, the Kabbalah, the prayer books, the Haggadah of Passover. They were writing all this, all their rabbis. And when the temple was disrupted in 70 AD, that's when they actually took the authority over from the Sadducees, who just vanished after the temple was done. And we'll talk about that in a second. Now, Yeshua, and for those who don't know what I'm talking about, that's Jesus, but that's his name, his real Hebrew name. That was he was called by. That was the name that he was born with and called by. Yeshua means in Hebrew salvation. Yeshua. That was his name. He was going around the synagogues as a young rabbi and preaching his new word and the new feeling that he's bringing to the people. You can actually go today and visit those synagogues. You can actually go to the synagogues that you can find in the Bible. Kfar Nahum, Kolazim, Beit Seidah, you can see and visit them. These are the places he was preaching. And he was preaching, as you know much better than me. He was saying to the people, observe the teachings of the scribes and the Pharisees. And he didn't come here he came here only to fulfill the law of the word of the Pharisees and not to abolish them, of the prophets. So he didn't come and say, okay, everything's, let's do something new. He came to his own people and he was saying, I'm not here to change anything, wake up. Let's wake up from all this, the bad things that are going on. And you have to understand that the whole preach journey of Yeshua was to the whole Jewish people around him. And every early Christian that we're going to talk about soon is authentically all Jewish. And all his disciples that were called the limited communion are all Jewish people around him that came after him from the beginning. This is a nice picture I like on the Sea of Galilee with the mount where he had the Sermon on the Mount. Now you all know the 12 disciples, but have you ever heard their names in Hebrew, their real names? Okay, so let's just pronounce them one by one so you can hear how they were called. So Peter was Shimon bar Yonah, Shimon the son of Yonah. Andrew was Andreas bar Yonah. James, Yaakov ben Zavdi, Jacob. John, Yohanan ben Zavdi, son of Zavdi. Bartholomew was Bar Talma Nathanael. Matthew was Matti Levi. Levi, like Cohen, Levi, you know? Tottenham, Levi, you know? Philippus mi Beit Seda. Beit Seda is where that synagogue used to be at Beit Seda. James the younger, Yaakov ben Chalfi, Jacob the son of Chalfi. Judah, Yehuda ben Yaakov. Judas, Yehuda ish Krayot. Simon, Shimon HaKanai. And Thomas Didymus. Jewish people from the area where Yeshua was preaching. And then in 70 AD, the temple was destroyed by the Romans. This was the end of the authority of the Sadducees, the priests. This was the end of the sacrificing of animals on the Temple Mount. This was the end of the central part of Judaism back then. They felt disconnected after this. They didn't have anything. The menorah, which if you know Hanukkah, is when we light the menorah, and it's all about the miracle that happened with the menorah in the first temple when it was destroyed. It was taken by the Romans. You can see that in Rome in the Ark of Titus. It was taken, the menorah was taken, the Ark of the Covenant was taken, everything. The Jewish people were left with nothing of their whole kind of essence of where to go to, the leadership. And that's when the Pharisees came in. They took control of the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin is the Jewish authority in the Holy Land for hundreds of years before, it started from 170 BCE until 425. So that's like the Jewish government, or the Jewish religious authority that was working under the Roman Empire. And the Pharisees took leadership the minute it became after the 70 AD when the temple was destroyed. And since then, until today, all Judaism is Pharisee Judaism. Okay, there was lots of sects, but only one survived until today. So everything we know about Judaism today, from the Hasidic, ultra-religious people till conservatives, whatever, they're all practicing Pharisee Judaism. All the Talmud, all the prayer books, all the Haggadah was all written by the rabbis of the Sanhedrin after the 70 AD. And then the synagogues started to take a major role because there was no temple. So now synagogues were starting to be the center where people came together. Rabbi Gamliel the elder was one of the very big famous rabbis back then, and we need his name for further slides soon. Rabbi Eliezer, we're also going to talk about him. Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Akiva, all these rabbis were the main figures in Jewish religion that every Jewish child knows their names today.
You had a photograph there of the falling of the temple by Francesco Lim.
Yeah.
When did he draw that?
Oh, well, probably the 17th century.
Oh.
It's just his imagination. So we had the temple down. Yeshua was preaching, and then after his resurrection, after his time, there were lots of Jews who were touched by his word. They thought and believed he was the Messiah. All his disciples, all the people who were left after him. So many Jewish people in the Holy Land, in that time, were believing that Yeshua was the Messiah. Because in the Jewish faith and the Pharisee faith, the Messiah is supposed to come. Until today, every Jewish person, that's what he said, the Messiah is supposed to come and bring peace. And these people, Jewish rabbis, Jewish people, that were touched by Yeshua's words, they said he's the Messiah. So what do? They had to open and establish new sects, Jewish sects. Okay? And the two big ones, there were quite a few, the two main big ones of Jewish people who believed Yeshua was the Messiah was the Nazarenes and the Ebionites. The Nazarenes believed that Yeshua was the Messiah, the Son of God. They observed all the laws of Moshe and Sabbath and circumcision, just like any other Jew. They were still practicing their Judaism. They said that Gentiles is everybody who's not Jewish, are welcome to join them. And the laws of Moses are mandatory only to those who are born Jewish. So if you're a Gentile and you want to join the Nazarenes, you don't have to circumcise, you don't have to keep the kosher food of the Sabbath, but you can join and do some other things and be part of this sect. And they didn't believe in the resurrection of the dead. The Ebionites, on the other hand, they did regard Yeshua as the Messiah, but they rejected his divinity. They said he's the Messiah, he's like a prophet that came and he's the Messiah, but he's not. They denied the virgin birth and the resurrection. So they were more kind of looking at him as the Messiah prophet. They said that if you want to join us, you have to do all the laws of Moses. So if you're a Gentile, you do have to circumcise, and you do have to keep kosher food, and you do have to keep the Sabbath. If you want to be part of this, you have to do everything. And they had special value on poverty. So they were a very different sect to the Nazarenes. So you have to kind of get this picture in your mind. Early Christians, they were Jewish, and they were part of the regular day-to-day life to the Holy Land. They were for the same family. So you had families that the father could be a Pharisee Jew, and the son could be a Nazarene. You can have a family that an uncle could be an Ebionite, and the father could be a Nazarene. So, and they prayed in the same synagogues. They were not different synagogues. They were all together. Same holidays. So if you had the high holidays, if you had the New Year, if you had the Passover, they were all together. And they had also Nazarene and also Ebionite rabbis that were part of the community, and were even in the Sanhedrin. We know that even in the Sanhedrin there were a few rabbis who were Nazarenes and Ebionites. So, if you were a Gentile back then, so you're an Egyptian, you're a Greek, you're a pagan, you're Roman, lots of Romans were in the Holy Land, and you were touched by the words of Yeshua. You were touched by his sayings. You wanted to join him. What did you do back then? There was no Christianity. You became Jewish. Okay? You have to get that into your mind. They were all together for hundreds of years, generations after generations after generation. You wanted to follow Yeshua's teachings and his word, you became Jewish. You became Nazarene Jew. You became an Ebionite Jew. But you were Jewish. There was nothing else. One of the first Gentiles that you probably know all about that was converted into the faith was Cornelius. He was a Roman centurion. He had a dream. He had to go and look for Peter in Jaffa. He found him, and then he came, and Peter baptized him with oil and made him actually the first, probably in the Bible, the first Gentile who was converted into being a Nazarene. Now, if you're a Gentile and you want to join let's say the Nazarenes, and you're not doing the circumcision, or you're not doing the kosher food, what did you do? What was the kind of act that you had to do and go through in order to join this sect? You had to baptize. And that is a very, a big act in all the rest of the history of Christianity. But you have to realize that the baptism act itself wasn't a new thing, because for thousands of years before that, into Jewish faith, there is a mikveh. A mikveh is where you purify yourself in water in various reasons. So women have to do that after their period, before they go back to the husband. Religious people do it every Friday before the Sabbath until today. Mikvehs are everywhere for religious people, and it's part of the whole day-to-day religious life. And that's why back then, it wasn't something unusual. They just had to go through the ceremony of baptism, which is the mikveh, in order to join the Nazarene. And there's no real difference, if you look at it deeply, between a mikveh and baptism. It's the same, coming from the same place. So, we had, for hundreds of years, Jews who believed their rabbi was the Messiah, living amongst the other Jewish people back then, before the separation. And that sounds for a lot of Jewish people like something, whoa, that couldn't happen today. But there is an example today, now, of exactly that. Okay? One of the biggest ultra-Orthodox Hasidic sects today, and one of the biggest loved ones, are called Chabad. They are hundreds of thousands of them, mainly in Brooklyn, New York. And they have a rabbi called Rabbi Lubavitch. The rabbi from Lubavitch is a town in Poland. That's where he came from. Rabbi Lubavitch, Yaakov Schnelson. He's the Messiah for them. He died 10 years ago. He's going to come back, resurrect, and be the Messiah again for everybody. That's what they say. These are mainstream, ultra-Orthodox Jews living today, much loved by the whole population of the Jewish world, because they are not extreme like the very extreme ultra-Orthodox. They are more moderate. They have Chabad houses in every place in the world where Israeli backpackers go. So if you're an Israeli backpacker and you're in India or you're in Guatemala, there's a Chabad house. You can always come, have a kosher meal, have a Shabbat meal. So they're there everywhere. Everybody loves them. Yeah? And they say that their rabbi was the Messiah. They used to broadcast him all over the world to hundreds of thousands of their Hasidic followers. And after he died, every day there's people near his grave and his wife's grave praying and everything that he's going to come back. That's fine, but that's exactly what happened then. There's no real difference. So we have today a Jewish sect that say their rabbi is the Messiah. And we have back then Jewish sect that said the rabbi is the Messiah. Why can't we live with that? Why can we live with that now? And why did it have to separate back then? This is a very interesting story to show you about the intertwining family relationships. There was the Rabbi Eliezer. He's one of the most famous rabbis of the beginning of the first century. He's one of the only ones mentioned in the Passover Haggadah of one of the rabbis that was reading the Haggadah. We read it every year. He's very famous. And he had an uncle, close uncle. In the Talmud it says that he was really close to him. His uncle was named Rabbi Shaul from Tarsus. That was his uncle. Rabbi Eliezer's uncle. And this Rabbi Shaul from Tarsus was a Jewish rabbi born somewhere near where Turkey is today. He was the pupil of Rabbi Gamliel the Elder, one of the most famous and biggest authorities back then. Rabbi Gamliel the Elder, he was his pupil back then. You can see that in Acts. And he was one of the persecutors. There were groups of fundamentalistic Pharisees back then. They were running after these Nazarenes and Ebionites and trying to make them, they were, not everything was nice and clean and white, yeah, not everybody was an angel. There were fundamentalistic small groups trying to get these strange Jews that believed the Messiah did come to kind of be in control. He was one of them. He persecuted them. And then on the way to one of his persecutions, on the way to Damascus, he was going to arrest some of these Nazarenes in Damascus. He had a dream, and in the dream, Yeshua came to him in the dream and said, Shaul, Shaul, why are you persecuting me? And he woke up from this dream, and he kind of turned 180 degrees in his faith, and he converted into Nazarene, and he became a Nazarene. And he believed in Yeshua, and he started to preach in the synagogues. And then he was one of the main ones that called all the Gentiles to join the Nazarenes without the need to do the laws of Moses. And then he changed his first letter of his name, Shaul, to P, Paul. Shaul to Paul, and he became Saint Paul. This is Saint Paul, the uncle of Rabbi Eliezer, who was a Nazarene. And most of the books of the New Testament are written by him. So one of the main figures of Christianity later on is Saint Paul, who was a Jewish rabbi, a scholar of Rabbi Gamliel the Elder, an uncle of Rabbi Eliezer the Great. They were all together back then. Now, we had a Council of Jerusalem, which was supposed to be the first meeting of Messianic Jews together. The first meeting that they now call it like the first meeting of the church. It was just Messianic Nazarene Jews meeting in Jerusalem. They met in the upper room is near Mount Zion, where the King David's tomb is. And they were actually talking about how Gentiles can join without doing all the Moses laws that they have to be done by other Jews. And they came up with this solution. So all the Gentiles who want to join, they have to abstain from food sacrificed to idols. They have to abstain from blood. So black pudding, meat that was strangled, and they have to abstain from sexual immortality. These are the things they have to do in order to join And that's what they did. And this was one of the main meetings they had back then. So until now we're talking, and it's mostly information and evidence from the Talmud and from other books. But now I want to show you some archaeological evidence that came out from that first century. So, after the Six-Day War, that's 1967, a very old priest that was living in a convent in Mount Zion, near the upper room. His name was Tek Otex. He was a monk. And he found a grotto with about 40 artifacts, old little lamps, pieces of glasses, pieces of jugs, and they all had this strange little symbol on them. The symbol is, if you take the menorah, which was the Jewish symbol back then, and you take the fish, which symbolized the people who believed in Yeshua, and you put them together, you get that the tail of the fish and the base of the menorah make the Star of David. And this is actually what they found on all of these artifacts. This beautiful symbol that shows, for me at least, the togetherness, the intertwining life of these communities together for years and years and years, for hundreds of years. And one of those artifacts, this stone, is actually thought to be, because it says it in Aramaic on it, for the oil of the Spirit, which is very, very like what's written in James, of the anointment. And that is, thought to be one of the most ancient Christian artifacts that were found in the first century. These artifacts are kind of vanished. They were given, part of them, to the Israel Museum. It's closed behind, I don't know where. Half of them were given to the Vatican. It's probably one of their vaults. The grotto, where you can actually go and see some of those symbols on the walls, belongs to the Vatican in Jerusalem, in Mount Zion, and it's all locked up for tens of years. So this thing is kind of suppressed. That we have photos and we have these people who had them with them for years. Another thing that for me is very touching, there's a first century synagogue that was archaeologically exposed in the Judean desert near Hebron. And there was a mosaic in the synagogue, and I'll show you a little video about that. Don't worry about the Hebrew, there's translation.
אבל אם אנחנו נראה את זה, זה כתוב בארמית, וכתוב ככה, דחירן, לטב, אני מתרגם, זכור לטוב, מנחמה, המנחם, ישוע, סהדה. המושג סהדה הוא מושג, כן, של מי מת על קידוש השם. הוא גם, הפירוש שלו בארמית זה גם מעד, העד, אבל לא במובן בלבד של בית משפט, אלא מי שמסר עדות בחייו. כן, כפי שאנחנו יודעים בתורה כתוב, ויעקב יקרא לו גלעד, ולבן יגר סהדותה. כן? אז סהדה זה שהיד, זה מי שמת על קידוש השם, בלטינית זה מרטיר. כן? זאת אומרת שיש לנו פה שם אחד בוודאות, ישוע, התואר שלו המנחם, ומת על קידוש השם, הוא גם עד, ויש לנו עוד שם שהוא שימ, ואפשר לשער שמדובר בשמעון. וכאשר הלכתי ושוחחתי עם אנשי המקום פה, אלה שחפרו ואלה שחקרו, מה זה אומר? כתובת כזאת. אז הם אמרו, כל זה מקרי לחלוטין. זה כל כך חלש, כל העמדה הזאת. זה כאילו לא רוצים לקבל את זה, שכנראה המקום הזה היה מאוכלס על ידי יהודים משיחיים שראו את עצמם כיהודים לכל דבר. מבחינתם הם יישמו את היהדות. הם האמינו בישוע כמשיחו של ישראל. ואני חושב שהנושא הזה היה דיון ציבורי עמוק ורציני בין החוקרים, ומפני שזה לראשונה אזכור בתוך בית הכנסת של ישוע. זה צריך להיות סקופ עולמי. איך הדבר הזה מוצנע לחלוטין?
So, let me try and express what it means to have the word Yeshua on a mosaic in a synagogue. Okay? I come from a religious family. I grew up in a religious family, a Jewish religious family. It's unheard of. It can't be. That's why then people say, oh, it's just a coincidence. The word Yeshua, the martyr, who died as a martyr, the comforter in a synagogue, yes, it's there. You can go and visit that place. It's on the ground. And the authorities on both sides just don't want to talk about that, period. That for me is one of the most emotional artifacts that you can go and actually see. So, why did they separate? For hundreds of years they were together. It wasn't something that happened immediately. It was a very, very gradual process. And it happened slowly, another little crack, another little thing, another little thing. So lots and lots of Gentiles during the centuries joined. And then the rabbis, the Pharisees rabbis, who were in control, they had to have control of the Jewish, that was their Jewish authority. Okay, there wasn't any temple, there was only the Romans, they were in control. But suddenly they had more and more Gentiles, especially the Nazarenes, who were sitting in the synagogue, doing all the prayers like everybody else, but they were not circumcised, and they were not eating kosher food, and they were not keeping the Sabbath, and they started to feel that they don't have control. And more Nazarenes and Ebionites started less and less to accept the Pharisees' authority, and that began to have cracks. Then a very strong thing happened. I'll show you the timeline soon. I think it's about 125 AD. One of the rabbis of the Sanhedrin added in the daily prayer, there's a daily prayer that you say 3 times a day, every religious Jewish person, like the most serious prayer. And they added a blessing there that actually says that whoever believes that the Messiah did come, they call them the Minim, those people who believe that the Messiah did come, they are cursed. So it's actually kind of a curse within the daily prayers. Now, in the synagogue, not like in, I think, Christianity, the person who leads the prayer is not the rabbi, it's one of the community. One of the community every time goes up and hears that he's the chazan, he's the one who does the prayers. And every time it's somebody else. So again and again it happened that these Nazarene Jewish people in the synagogue used to come up and say the prayers and suddenly say actually a prayer, a blessing that's against themselves. So they started to feel more and more uncomfortable and not wanted and not welcomed in the synagogues. That took a long time. Then there was a big Jewish revolt against the Romans. The Jews tried to overrule the Romans. There was a big war, the Jewish war, and the Sanhedrin tried to get all the Jews and all the tribes together to do this big war against the Romans, to chuck them out of the Holy Land because they were suppressing very strongly. And one of the things they did, they took this big general who was a hero, he was like the biggest hero back then, called Bar Kokhba. He was the big Jewish general of the army and everything. And one of the rabbis actually said, he's the Messiah. Follow him. They wanted all the Jewish tribes to follow this general that they can win the war against the Romans. And the Nazarenes and the Ebionites didn't join because they said, we have our Messiah. He's not the Messiah. So socially or in terms of the communities, all these people went to war and died, and all the sons went to war, and the Nazarenes and the Ebionites didn't join. That was a big kind of a breaking point in the community. Also, the Nazarenes changed the holy day from the Saturday, Shabbat, to Sunday in order to be separated, in order to be different from the other communities because the separation was growing and growing. And for me, the nail in the coffin, or the biggest thing for the separation in 325 was the Council of Nicaea, or what's called the Nicaea Creed. That's when Constantine had all the Nazarene priests, they were already called, and the Ebionites priests, and everybody who was into the non-Jewish faith and more into the Messiah. They came together and they were talking about how to differentiate themselves. They separated Easter from the Jewish calendar. They, at this point, everything changed from a Gnostic flow, from a kind of more fluid faith into a more top-down. If you don't agree with us, you're wrong, and we're right, you're wrong. That's when everything started. And actually, that meeting, that creed, was the basis for the Emperor Theodosius to actually make Christianity the Roman religion. So that was, for me, the last thing that happened that actually separated everything. Until then, it was a gradual thing. For me, these are the four main, I think, points that made the separation. That blessing that they added to the daily prayer, the Nazarenes and Ebionites didn't join the Bar Kokhba revolt, the changing of the holy day to Sunday, and the Council of Nicaea. Those were the four kind of things that made the separation. So if we put it on a timeline, and we try and see, the Jewish line and the future Christian line, when they were in the first 300 years, they were very close, very intertwined until the separation. And if we put the events on the same timeline, so Yeshua was born here, and then his ministry started here, and he was crucified when it was 33 AD. Then Paul's ministry started here. The Council of Jerusalem we talked about. The temple was destroyed in 70. The Gospels were started to be written. Birkat HaMinim, that blessing that they added to the prayer, was somewhere here. Bar Kokhba result was 135. Nazarene exchange, the holy day to Sunday, was before 200. And then at last, the Council of Nicaea. So this is how we can see the timeline separating into there. And there's something nice I would like to read out if Angela can help me. Can you read it from there? Or do you? Can you? Angela will read the English and I'll read the Hebrew. It's from Genesis. So can you start?
Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee.
ויאמר אדוני אל אברהם, לך לך מארצך וממולדתך ומבית אביך אל הארץ אשר אראך.
And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing.
ואעשך לגוי גדול ואברכך ואקבלך שמך ואהיה ברכה.
And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed.
ואברכך ומברכך ומקלך האור ויברכו בך כל משפחות האדמה. All the families of the earth were blessed by God to Abraham, through Abraham. All the families of the earth. That is something that connects me with all of that period before the separation. We are all children of God together. This is written in Genesis. And there is hope. There is hope. Things are happening. If you read carefully in the papers, you can see that things are happening all around on both sides. The Vatican calls Catholics to stop trying to convert Jews. Apologies of the Holocaust from the Pope. Orthodox rabbis issue card-breaking declaration offering partnership with Christianity. Leading Orthodox rabbis call Christianity a gift Jesus brought to business of the world. These are things that were not there years before. And this is things that are starting to happen. And there is hope. And pictures like this of the Pope visiting the Western Wall, hugging the chief rabbi of Argentina, because he comes from Argentina, so they know each other, and the sheikh from the mosque in Jerusalem and the rabbi of the Western Wall. These are things that touch and show that, this is all human beings together. And this is my prayer that we can all unify. And I would like to talk to you just before I finish about this project that I am now going to make happen. And this comes out from all of this research, from all of this journey I'm going through. And there's a few of us, a few friends of mine who are also in support of this. Amanda, I won't say names, Mia. Anyway, there's a few people who are around me with this. But I want to take you through this and show you what I want to do. I want to do this installation. I'm starting to have some conversations, probably, eventually, hopefully, in places like the Tate Museum or in London and other places. You come in to the installation, and there are lots and lots of doors that you come in through. And you actually choose which door to come in through with your faith. So each door is either a religion, so they'll have all the religions there, or if there's too many, they'll have a door others or something. But the main religions will be there. There'll be a door for atheism, any atheist person. There'll be a door for non-religious God believers, and etc., etc. Doors for all the faiths. And you go in through your door. The door that you were born into, the door that you live by, the door that you believe in. And in the door, or in the little corridor, or probably a little room, they'll have all the symbols of your faith. So if you go into Christianity, you'll have the books and the scribes. If you're a Muslim, you're going to have all the Quran and everything. If you're atheist, I don't know, encyclopedia or whatever. So you'll have everything in that little room. But then, if you want to come in to the main hall, the white room, you have to go through another door. You have to put on a white shirt. Oh, you can't see the white shirt. You put a white shirt on. And you come in and you join a circle of people together, of humans together as one. And this is an experience that I want people to actually feel with their legs, going through their faith, through their place of birth, or through their family of origin and their belief, and go through there and then come into another room neutrally and sit together in eye level with everybody else. And in that room, we want to value very specific things. So you're sitting together in eye level and heart level as equal with other people that not necessarily you would see as equal, maybe, or you would have feelings for. And we want to get a genuine respect and acceptance for each human's destiny, birthplace, journey, religion or belief, whoever he is from wherever. We're all made to go through the journey we're made to go. We're made to, it's a heavenly journey of being born into the family you've been born, into the nation you've been born, into the religion you've been born, and we're all equal. And to accept that we're all equal in the eyes of God. And if you're an atheist, the universe, or whatever we call it, nature, Mother Nature. But we're all equal. It will sound harsh, but from, I don't know, the Pope or Mahatma Gandhi or the Dalai Lama till the last, I don't know, serial killer in a jail. Okay? We're all equal in the eyes of God. And to sit there in that kind of equality, we have to stop the judgmental and comparison feelings towards fellow beings. We do it unconsciously. We do it without thinking even. All of us, all day, every day. We see somebody from a different neighborhood. We see somebody from a different town. We see somebody from a different race. We see somebody from a different religion. If it's Forest Row, so the Steiner people will look at the people going to the Forest Row school, and the people who are, they're organic and they're not. There's all the time this thing. We're all there. Even if we think we're angels, we're all doing this, and we have to learn not to do that. It's hard, but we have to go there, and that's part of this experience. Loving and respecting the differences in each other, in one another. It starts in your family, with your wife or your husband, with your children, with your mother and father, with your neighbors. they're so different from me. Oh, they're not like me. Yeah, that's the beauty. We were all made so different. That's the beauty of the diversity and the differences within each other. And to be active in to bring peace to the world. Of course, you can go to Africa for 3 years and help the hungry children and do big things, but you can also help a lady with her shopping across the street, and you can also knock on your neighbor's door, and you can also do all kinds of things, maybe like this white room, to try and do active things. And what will we actually do in the room? So things like humanitarian talks, not theological or religious talks about different religions, but things to do with all humanity, topics of humanity, group awareness activities. For example, each one, the people go to near their doors they came in from, and then we say, okay, everybody who has a cat to the middle, so everybody comes and mixes up. Everybody who lost someone dear, come to the middle. Things like that to make the group feel that we're all intertwined, we're all the same, we're all together. Meditating together, singing together with different voices. We can do a whole singing thing, self-awareness session, sharing food even from different cultures. It can be beautiful. And what we're trying to do is, and we have a list there if you're interested to help us make this happen. We'll be very grateful. Also, if you put your email on the list, we will let you know when the first installation will happen. Probably we'll do one locally first on a smaller scale to see it out. So if you want to be part of this and to come, please put your name there and your email, not scribble writing. And also there's a little box there that you can tick if you want to be part of the think tank, part of the brainstorming. There's a few of us who really want to try and make this happen, so we'll be very grateful if you do. That's it, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.